Consuming the content doesn't make you that thing. Behavioral change does.
You could do the same thing with advice. I think listening to lots of advice and not acting on it, or not figuring it out for yourself. Not saying that all advice is bad, but saying that putting advice from other people over your own experience and like learnings from your own experience is probably the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, but I'd even add on top of that, which is just because someone may say it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it still is the right thing for you. You can still act upon the advice, but then it turns out to be bad for you.
Good luck to my ancestors.
Hope they're well.
Hope they're well.
Great little caviar.
Very good caviar.
Welcome to this episode. Yeah, shut up.
Whoa. No, welcome to this episode of the podcast, episode 169. Eight, nine, one of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Question mark?
Question mark.
Tick.
It's taking 5 seconds.
No one gets that one but me and Jack, so we'll continue.
Jack and I.
Jack and I.
Oh, no, it's actually me and Jack. Because if you take away the Jack, it would be no one gets it except me. Not except I.
Yeah.
So that's when you say me and Jack.
So was I right?
You were correct. Lovely doing business with you. See, we don't even educate only on life, but grammar as well.
Speaking of grammars, no, we'll skip that part. So, we need a pause button here.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a pause. Feel free to make the sound effect and I'll put it in, and then it's just an Alfio pause. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so what I've got here from the episode with my lady,
David Senra.
He talked about how we want to humanize people so that we can relate to them. Did you get that point as well?
Yes.
Subconsciously, that's why I'm always looking to humanize people who are really quote unquote successful, so that I can then feel like I also can become that. Remember how I was like, I hope Chris Williamson trips up the stairs so that I can also feel like I can also be Chris Williamson because I can trip up the stairs.
Yes. That's why I think podcasts and autobiographies resonate so much, because when you explain the struggle or the initial period, or why David Goggins resonates so much, because when you hear his story about him being a 400-pound pest exterminator, it's so relatable. You don't just see the end product. You're like, oh, wow, I might even be in a better position than they were.
That's a good point.
And I think that's why I really got into podcasts to start with, like listening to successful people and thinking that what they're going through is not inherently that different to what I'm going through. Yeah, it's very valuable.
It gives you a bit of faith.
It does.
They can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And when you see someone who's almost so high above everyone else that you don't think that they're human, you want to see them not fall, but you want to see them. I mean, some people do want to see them fall, but some people, like me, I want to see them also show the same traits that I have myself, so I can be like, oh, they do that, I can also do that.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can still become similar to them.
Yeah.
And that's why if Chris Williamson trips up some stairs, weirdly enough, it's going to make me feel better out.
Again, I don't think that's the best example of it.
Like Stephen Bartlett spitting on himself, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
A better example.
Probably still not my main idea, because I don't think you want to optimize for spitting on yourself to be successful.
I do spit on myself a weird amount now just to prove that I'm like human.
Yeah. Could you do that around Alfio and I as well, please? We need to see the human side of you sometimes.
Nah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I got that one on the schedule.
Okay.
On the forecast.
No, fair enough. I accept you.
What would you say? You accept me. Crazy. So have you got a better example of
What?
the spitting on yourself or tripping up some stairs?
Well, it would maybe be in my football career, listening to like successful footballers' stories about how they've failed to make teams, had to travel alone, sort of their journey up, not being linear. Or you hear that some players have been released from academies and then still made it to the top level. It shows that they wouldn't have had the perspective then that, oh, it's all going to be okay. They would have had that same doubt, and hearing them speak about that doubt, that almost, like you said, it gives you faith that the important part is not the outcome. I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's all of the characteristics, none of the proof.
Yeah.
It's pretty much reinforcement that the outcome isn't the important thing. It's what you're doing to get there.
Yeah. It makes me think of the 4-minute mile. And as soon as you know that it's possible, everyone else can start to do it.
Yeah.
You kind of took it a little bit left from that way you're saying.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But afterwards we'll speak about it.
Yeah,
It won't be fine.
You accept me for who I am.
On camera, yeah.
On camera.
But it talks about like 4-minute mile was once impossible, yet when one person does it, everyone is then able to do it.
Yeah.
And in this sense, like you want to see someone do something that you too can do or you have done before to make it also feel like the path has been carved out before you. The example that our boy gave was that if you're going and hiking down a track, you want to see footsteps or at least a path half made for you so you also then know where to go.
Yeah.
That's what that really is. But then it also, for the person who did it without, the biggest credit really goes to them.
Yeah.
So big up the founding fathers.
It's like Marcus Aurelius, his meditations book. The fact that that was his daily journal. And now it still resonates with people, and the most successful entrepreneurs, businessmen will listen to that as advice.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. You land?
Don't act too shocked. I do make good points every so often. I don't know what I was trying to land.
Okay. You kind of said it before with like, don't optimize for spitting on yourself. Also, don't optimize. It's not a great one. Don't optimize for doing the exact same things that made someone else successful. So for Marcus Aurelius, don't try and do the exact same things that he did just for the sake of that, because that's where that got him. So, for example, if Marcus Aurelius, went on a walk for 10 kilometers every Tuesday, and that's something that made him better, that might not be the thing that makes you better.
Yeah.
It might be your downfall, actually.
That is the stigma, not stigma, but the misconception around a lot of Andrew Huberman. That you definitely see it in Bondi near where I live, is the all Huberman-esque fanatics who they quickly get some sunlight, then they quickly do all these like protocols because it's like, it's said to be successful, whereas it's not almost your own individual agency to find what works and sort of take that as guidance. Because I think that's the biggest thing is role models, or like David Senra, like the founders David Senra analyzes, is it should be advice or guidelines to the characteristics,
the framework to figure it out.
Exactly.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but we could really plug that back to what the Sculpted app is. It's not a prescription.
You'd love to be that guy, actually.
Yeah, well, I say that because I am that guy.
You are that guy.
And
you are the guy.
Yeah. So, the Sculpted app gives you the framework to find out what those things are. If you can just do the bare minimum, you then have the framework to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
It's just essentially the way that I figured out the Sculpted app, and this is now Jack's job, which is finding the key fundamentals of a human being, what matter to you. Now, one thing obviously was the congruency, because without that, you really aren't anything. So that's one thing. Non-negotiables, that's also congruency. If I say that I'm not going to do something, I should also not do it. Same as if I want to be something, I should also do it. And there's all these different things. Time pressure is one of them. A deadline is proven to just help you be more productive and efficient. And there's all these different things within the app itself that are there as a framework so that you can then improve upon it and then have your own framework, which is why when we had that question off air before, I won't necessarily, in a hypothetical, judge you because of it. I would say it's a misdiagnosis because it's caught, especially in your case. And
it's caught.
Yeah, just keep going. Brush over.
Okay.
Cannot make, any.
Yeah, then why would you even...
Because it's funny for us.
It is funny for us.
Yeah. Inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Double entendre. So, if we... Caviar. Okay. Deliberate de-optimization.
You speak on that.
I have a very, very formalized opinion on deliberate de-optimization, and I've done that for a long time, which is rest days. Rest days, as everyone knows here, I want my rest days to be as unproductive as possible to make sure that the following days are as productive as possible. And deliberate de-optimization...
Is that just a narrative you've told yourself?
No, that's been proven. I proved that to myself that works for me. I'm not saying that it works for everyone here.
Okay.
We've spoken about how it might not work for Alfio. Remember Alfio, how was saying, like, maybe it's better for you to have a half day here and there. But for me, deliberate de-optimization for a 1 day period where it's just nothingness actually makes me more efficient.
Expand.
Okay. Do you want me to give examples?
Yes.
Rest days. That's pretty much it. Like,
No,
I think
but
it's
why?
why? Because okay, if we're thinking about overload, if I was to continue going to the gym 5 days a week and keep on working on these massive biceps, there's going to be a period of time where I don't give it enough time to regenerate per se. So you have to give your mind time to regenerate as well. This is actually one of the first things that we spoke about Dan Abrahams in our first episode that we did with him when Jack wasn't here, and it was talking about how I don't really believe in overtraining to the extent that if you over recover, you will never be able to overtrain. It just means that you're probably spending 20 hours a day recovering and then 4 hours a day training. But that's also a possibility that you can never overtrain if you over recover. It just means that you're probably doing a lot more recovering than training.
But I think recovery. Yeah, I mean, this is a very two-quote way.
Yeah.
But recovery, like foam rolling, ice baths, they don't move as much as sleep and actual time off your feet.
And probably having like a knee.
The shade. Wow, that's mean.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say foam rollers don't really work.
It's all it does is blood circulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It won't accelerate. Oh, I guess blood acceleration sort of does help you prepare, but not. It's not nothing compared to an ice bath.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
well, no, actually, those two do the very similar thing. It's just more biometric benefits of an ice bath and sauna. It does the key principle of both of them, which is what contrast therapy is.
I know that's what a sauna does.
Yeah.
For the ice bath, because an ice bath, because the sauna brings the blood all the way up to your vessels.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is.
I think an ice bath also.
He's a physio, by the way.
No, not yet.
Oh yeah.
Well, wannabe.
Don't
Sorry, not wannabe.
Up there, don't quote me on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Do ice baths also kill muscle fibers as well, so that they get reborn? I think they have that same sort of effect.
I think it's the decrease, the size.
What do you mean?
So, the purpose of contrast therapy is to shock the system, going from because what happens when it's cold, shrink, heat, expand, and contrast. Don't say pause.
What do you mean?
Yeah, and
nice.
then the purpose of contrast therapy is to get the quick juxtaposition, which is stimulating blood circulation. Obviously, there's biometric benefits of ice baths and saunas, but with contrast therapy, it accelerates recovery. Agreed?
Somewhat, yeah.
What would be the...
I'm not. I'm retired now.
Yeah,
got. It's not my area of expertise anymore.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just gonna say this. I had an ice bath after every single training session, and now I'm. I had
Quadriplegic.
an arthritic knee at 22 years old. So
21, really.
Yeah, 21 years old. So ice baths are bullshit.
Not on my podcast.
Maybe it
Can you
depends.
bleep it? Because that's even more effect if I look down the camera and I'm like, ice baths are...
Bullshit.
Yeah, you can keep that as a thumbnail.
Yeah,
But,
real mad.
I feel like it just depends on the time you take it. Like, I wouldn't take an ice bath directly after a hypertrophy workout.
Yeah, they say
that is
not
true,
to.
Yeah, but in Jack's instance, like, I actually don't think the time or duration of an ice bath matters. It was gonna always happen. It's just the
And
fact
I did it for 7 minutes and 30 seconds as well, because that was the scientific...
No, it's meant to be 29 seconds. That's probably what happened.
29 7 minutes and 29 seconds. Yeah, but I've never been exploded.
You spat on me.
Oh, did I?
You
Yeah.
need to be in there for that long. For it to
Yeah,
take 20
yeah. Well, it didn't work, obviously. So
No, but I think that
all that time I spent in those ice baths freezing, and oh gee whiz, I'm actually venting.
Yeah,
This is my
this is
therapy
crazy.
session. It's just because I feel safe around Alfia.
I'm non-judgmental.
Joke.
You got the judgmental.
Yeah. As soon as I start speaking about my knee session.
That's why he was, you could tell me he's rushed.
Yeah, exactly. That is actually why I could.
you literally did it with me, but it's all good.
I felt loved.
I didn't even finish the sentence, so we could just agree to it.
I think the overarching message for ice baths should be that ice baths aren't a recovery solution; it's a recovery enhancer, but it's not a solution. You can't rely on it. Nor could you rely on even stretching to do something.
Yeah, and everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
So find your limit.
I also just don't think that ice baths are that much of a mover in terms of recovery. Like, they definitely help, but I don't believe that ice
I
baths are...
think in terms of holistic health, they definitely do help.
They
Like, I'm talking about in terms of like your mental health, in terms of
Your
like,
breathing, yeah.
breathing,
Yeah.
your circadian
actually,
rhythm.
well,
That
breathing.
that helped me so much.
quick
more. Yeah.
caveat on breathing in an ice bath. This is from the man
This
himself.
is the most caveat, yeah.
Well, it's from the straight from the mouth of Wim Hof. Don't practice breathing when you're doing ice baths.
No, you don't practice breathing, but naturally you're
Forced to breathe, yes.
yeah.
Well, if you focus on breathing, this is something for the listeners even. This is from, as I
It
said.
did feel harder when I was focusing on my breathing.
Well, the actual reason is more biometric because you can pass out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just would feel the cold.
I mean, you can't pass out just from breathing.
No, if you
it's the
focus-
amount of air you.
It's if you're not getting enough oxygen.
Yeah,
I actually from Wim Hof, my understanding was
just by focusing on that means that if I focus on passing out, I might pass out.
no, because you're exposed to such extreme temperatures. That's why. So when it's from my understanding, it was like a chemical reaction between biometric and then physiological. Same thing.
But what's focus on breathing got anything to do with that?
Ask Wim Hof.
You're gonna breathe regardless.
Ask Wim Hof. I agree with you.
But what I felt was because you know how your heart rate shoots through the roof as soon as you get in, and you're like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
really want to.
Panting. You start panting.
You start panting.
Big ups, Messi.
That's-
As well, by the way.
Yeah. That's how you naturally actually pass out if you're breathing too much.
Yeah.
So like trying to regulate your breathing. That's what
All
I
the
found
old
most effective.
Yeah, I think the old no.
So what?
No.
No, tell me.
No. It'd be demonetized.
Okay.
So, next thing that we've got. Consuming the content doesn't make you that thing. Behavioral change does.
Oh, that was very Chris Williamson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consuming the content doesn't make you that thing. Behavioral change does.
Yes.
Thoughts, comments, queries, questions?
You could do the same thing with advice. I think listening to lots of advice and not acting on it, or not figuring it out for yourself. That's probably your message, right? Is not saying that all advice is bad, but saying that putting advice from other people over your own experience and like learnings from your own experience is probably the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, but I'd even add on top of that, which is just because someone may say it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it still is the right thing for you. You can still act upon the advice, but then it turns out to be bad for you. It's kind of what we were saying before.
Yeah, but I think in the most part, it will point you in the right direction.
What if I told you to do something really risky, put $50,000 into Bitcoin because it's
Yeah,
what
but-
made me my money, and you lose 100K? That doesn't make sense. But
No, but then again, we've spoken about it. It's about like if they give advice with characteristics,
yes.
not do this because this is what worked for me. It's this is how I approach my problem.
So, but if I was to prescribe something to anyone, which is why what I've said to both of you guys before, when we've spoken about things, I've broken it live in the flesh with you, and we've figured our own terminology out for it. And I will never say that I don't even think that's the right thing to do, but I would say have a nuanced approach with trying it and comparing it to what you know.
Yeah.
And if there is any degree of maybe that's better, continue to test, and then lean into whichever. Oh, we never even landed on what the thing was with Alfio, with the eating disorder.
No.
So Alfio, remember when we were in the car going back from Taronga Zoo,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I think that this might be able to help, or this. Sorry.
I was just gonna say you left your spag bowl in my bag and it went all over my bag, by the way.
I do apologize. I didn't know that. You should have told me in the moment. We could have washed it out.
I found out when I got home.
Oh, I didn't even take the container.
No, I chucked it out. It was broken.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Really?
it's all good. I didn't care, but I just had to say that.
I do apologize. Damn.
No, it's fine.
God, there's been some good shade.
Yeah.
We
No, that's
we
not
would
shade.
like to
That's
we would
appropriate.
like to announce Alfio's first boxing match is against Nick
Yeah, Nick O'Neill.
in a sculpted duel. I'm the special guest referee. I'll be favouring one
Yeah, I
fighter.
wonder who's
That-
biased.
That's for sure.
But yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So when we were speaking in the car, and I was giving you, quote unquote, the most advice that I could give anyone, which is just really just working it out with you in the moment. And we spoke about the King Solomon effect, and I said, I actually flipped it, and I was like, how would you do it? What would you prescribe to yourself? And I was like, you know what? I've been trying to do the same thing with my eating disorder, which is like, quote unquote, you could say an addiction, but also I would say it's a trained, almost philosophy of how I approach food. And I realized that through that same approach that I prescribed with you, per se, I could also do the same thing for myself with my eating disorder, and I'd already come to that conclusion in the weeks coming up, but I hadn't put a conclusive fact on it yet. And that day, from there on forwards, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wake up tomorrow and my eating disorder is going to disappear. Now, I would also caveat that with
That might not make sense for the listeners.
Yeah, so that won't work for anyone else but me in that moment as well, because I've put in so much work to actually get to the point.
That you have the knowledge and the skills to be able to apply that.
Yeah, so if anyone, because eating disorders are very touchy to go around. For context, Jack and I both have eating disorders, therefore we are qualified to at least speak on it. Because a lot of people get
undiagnosed. Oh well, mine's undiagnosed.
Okay, I would say undiagnosed by a professional, but mine
Yeah.
was diagnosed by several professionals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically, long story short, the way that we got through it was reflecting on how our actions are aligned with specific things, and how our actions don't have to be dictated by specific actions that we take, and how the domino effect is actually in our control. And again, this really doesn't help anyone who's listening. If anyone does have any addiction, it won't help you listening to what we're saying, other than it is possible to get out of it. That's the only thing that I'd say, is that it's possible to get out of it, although the work...
Yeah, and I think knowledge is power, isn't it? It's not as if...
No,
but I think you can't get to that point if you don't have that knowledge.
Okay, sure. But there's a certain degree of knowledge that is unhelpful as well.
Yeah, but I'm not saying knowledge in terms of like knowledge about food.
Sure, it's an inverted U.
Speaking on addictions, do you think that you ever fully get over an addiction? Like, for example, do you still have that thought in your head, oh, Macca's is there, like, you know what I mean? Like,
That's my shot.
yeah, no, I wasn't trying to be like that, but like seriously, like you like still have that, like, oh, that would be great right now. Like I do feel like that.
Yeah,
You know?
I think so.
Well, so the inverted U. I think that the amount of knowledge you have at the beginning, it can spike and get you to the cross section of the inverted U, the middle section of the third. This section here in the inverted U is probably the most difficult period of time to where addiction can happen, where you don't have enough information to get out of the addiction or to feel what it's like on the other side, because that takes too much activation energy within that. Inverted U, so like that.
Okay.
So you get enough knowledge that gets you inside of the addiction. Let's say it's like if you were really addicted to alcohol, per se, you figured out that you liked alcohol. It was a quick rise to entering the second quadrant of the inverted U. And this is the knowledge quadrant, to where you don't have enough knowledge to get out of it, but you're experiencing the next kind of segue into getting out of it. Some people never get out of it. Some people just turn it into an exponential chart. Obviously, those people end up probably being a victim of it. But in this case, if you can get back over that slump of knowledge and get to the other side of like self-awareness, I would say, rather than knowledge, learning about yourself with that knowledge. Because
Yes.
the way that you get into an eating disorder is typically by hearing something and trying to apply it to yourself. Like for me, I got my eating disorder the craziest way. A sports nutritionist said, try the 80-20 rule. Tried the 80-20 rule. Knowledge applied to me, but not applicable to me. I get that knowledge. I'm in the second section of the inverted U. And guess what? That knowledge wasn't applicable for me. Therefore, I got into an eating disorder. And then it took me 4 years to figure out, 4 to 5 years actually, to figure out the self-awareness to even get out of it. Because I had to figure out everything that I'd previously learned to myself to now be proven as wrong and live those experiences, so that when I actually get out of that inverted U, now the knowledge that I've used from the previous to get me up to here is then basically counteracted by the self-awareness that I have from that knowledge and how it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, it's learning what your tendencies are on acting in it, and then with the knowledge, then you can apply it.
Yes.
So really, you only work your way out of an addiction with changing behavior,
Which
but
is
almost like recognizing early signs of it. So there'd probably be cues like we spoke about for you. There's been for me that we're more likely to act on the addictive behavior. And then with that knowledge, you only get that knowledge really from kind of going through that bad patch.
the inverted
Yeah,
U. It's
and-
seeing that out.
Yeah. And then almost recognizing that and then changing behavior cognizantly. And like you said, you get to that one point, or you may get to that stage where you're like, well, now I recognize the cues for it. Why can't I just change my reaction to it?
Well, my question was more like,
Yeah.
like what was, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
what were you addicted to? Was it like junk food, that sort of stuff, or?
Yeah, it would have been John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So similar to Nick. So, like, do you
Sure.
guys still have?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I do.
You do?
Yeah,
So in that sense, I was thinking maybe it's not about actually fully not feeling like having it anymore. It's just about, like Nick was speaking about earlier in the last podcast, how your word becomes more important to you. Like you stick to it, like the running, you know what I mean? You're not that person anymore.
yeah.
So you just stick to the way you're going, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's not going from I'm this type of person that when I feel like this, it's like saying labeling saying an eating disorder. I don't think is helpful either.
The least
Because
productive
then
thing.
because then you get that feeling and you're like, oh, I've got an eating disorder. I'm more likely to act on it, right? You don't then go from there to, oh, I'm not the type of person that does it straight away. You may have to go into like a schema of like more niche, being like, I may feel this way, but I don't have to act on it. And then that's probably where I'm at now, is that I'll get that feeling, but it's almost that, oh, I don't have to act the way I used to act.
So that's where I think I feel what the answer to what you're saying, and it's actually exactly what we spoke about in the car, which was feel the feeling. Sometimes even act upon it if you don't feel as if you have complete control. But when you are acting upon it, reflect and realize how you feel doing it to how you feel not doing it. And kind of force yourself to see both sides. It'll be really difficult to actually force yourself to see opposite sides. But like, for example, as much as fasting doesn't help me at times, now I can do fasting normally. When I was like, let's say this time last year, when I was like almost like abusing fasting as a punishment, actually like the diagnosis that I had is I thought anorexic was, but I was never a good one, if that makes sense. I would never like be, it's a little bit morbid to, because anorexia is obviously the most,
Deadly, yeah.
deadly, like actually deadly.
Yeah, it is.
So the way that it was like prescribed is, I think, as an anorexic would, although I act as a bulimic, and that just is the least helpful framing. But essentially, the way that I got out of it was by just being aware of how it is to be in the moment, how it is to feel each sensation, and then realizing that I have the control of every situation. And just remember, Alfie, the inverted U isn't it's not a lowercase inverted U. It's an uppercase inverted U to where it's like that. It's a gradual decrease. It's not just like that. That can happen. Don't get me wrong. It's an exception though. So in this case, you can still have those things and still fall for them, but you don't fall to the extent. I'll still have a bit of junk food, but I won't have as much as I used to, because I realize that one bad decision doesn't make the day bad. Just like one bad apple doesn't make.
I think what you said about being mindful with it is really important. Like you'd relate as well. When you're doing the addictive behavior, it's almost you disassociate. It's almost like an out of body. You're so out of control.
You would forget when you're binge eating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd forget. So it is being mindful. It's giving yourself more knowledge, pretty much through the whole experience.
That actually is the hardest thing to communicate to someone who doesn't know what an eating disorder is that like you'll feel extremely guilty because you don't even know that you did it.
Yeah.
And it's very weird for us to say that, for someone who both of us take complete accountability for everything. And it's a difficult thing to come to terms with, because it's like, how do I keep congruent with who I am, yet live this like almost false life? And the way that we would deal with it is by leaning into the eating disorder even more, because it's like, yeah, I did that. I did make that decision. We almost have to be cognitively dissonant to even get out of the eating disorder.
And then you that's when it's bad, because then you do the compensating behaviors.
Yeah.
And it is almost like you're trying to hold on so tight to the control that your body or whatever, your mind almost pulls you in the other direction, being like, I need something else. But yeah.
I think that, wow, plus 99. I have spam your inbox.
You do, but I check them through my email, not my inbox here.
So you get emails as well?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've probably sent around upwards of, if there's 51 people in that Notion page, that's probably 5,000 emails of just random stuff.
That's a whole inbox.
Mentioned you in this, mentioned you in this, mentioned you. And there's so many pages I'm real over. Yeah. For a simple mind like mine. God, we caveat. That might not even have to stay in.
No, we will. Anyways.
I was just going to ask, since you mentioned alcohol before, sometimes people with addictions to alcohol, it's more physical. Like when they're suffering withdrawals, they have like things like the shake
Mm.
and that sort of stuff. Like I've seen it personally working like around alcohol and all that sort of stuff. So what advice would you give someone who's trying to recover from that sort of addiction?
Okay. Personally, that's very, very different to how I know addiction because that's at a physical level. But I wouldn't say it's advice again. I would say that even in this case, like, in ANA, is that no in Alcoholic Anonymous, but also then recovery and whatnot. One of the biggest points to getting over recovery is actually taking some of the accountability off you and putting it onto a higher power. Now, this typically comes in a God, and we've spoken about this before in other instances, to where being disassociated and almost blaming and having a lack of accountability on something else is helpful, which is why lack of accountability is it's blissful ignorance. And it's really nice to be in blissful ignorance, and I love blissful ignorance. And sometimes blissful ignorance can really help you because you can lack accountability. And this thing that you do in recovery and etc. is to put the source of X, Y, and Z feelings, behaviors onto something else that's not representative of you, but it's I do this because of this reason, and because of that reason, there is an inherent good and evil for said objective. That is the bad speaking. I'm going to take the good. But with that consciousness, you also have to be, per se, religious, or you have to be religious aware.
But I think it's what they do say is, like Nick's saying, it's acceptance. Like you really do need to accept that it is, whether you disassociate and be like, this is a part of me because of some other reason, but like almost accepting that it is part and then moving forward through that. I think it is what we're saying in terms of being mindful and like cognizant of your experiences, but on a like larger degree.
Yeah, it's a physical manifestation of the feelings that you have inside.
Yes.
Like if we were really, really desperate for sugar, for example, the sensation that we would feel isn't as biometric because it's like, I mean, maybe an adverse response to wanting sugar could be like a more physical thing in our bodies. Like maybe it would be more bloated or something like that. Whereas alcohol and nicotine, for example, actually has a physical manifestation on your biometric ability to where because you haven't had alcohol in such a long time and you're craving it, you actually might be shaking.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is. It's just that for food, it doesn't have as much of an instant.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, if you overeat, you only feel bloated or you feel like fat.
Yeah.
Whereas if you over consume alcohol, for example, you actually will have a physical repercussion for it.
Yeah.
To where shaking actually kind of makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So I wouldn't even say that it's a worse point of addiction. It's just a different way of manifesting.
But obviously, it's maybe more painful.
When you over drink alcohol, it's not like you don't shake, you become intoxicated.
Yeah, but that's
the withdrawals.
But that's a physical response to an action. Whereas when you overeat, you don't have a physical response.
Do you not have any physical response to any withdrawals when you feel like,
That's all mental. That's all mental. Other than the physical manifestation of getting fatter. But that's longer term. You don't get that immediately.
No, but then some people who do compensating behaviors and will starve themselves the next day.
Yeah.
Then that's like self-induced withdrawal symptoms. It's as opposed to that's why alcohol is so bad, is because alcohol addiction is so bad because of those withdrawal symptoms. Like how can you not act on them because it's so aversive?
Yes.
But
I think that it's an alcohol addiction in this instant is like more obvious because it's actually showing in physical state rather than long term where eating disorders. I mean, obviously anorexia and the other types are a little bit different in that because that is a literal sense of you will starve yourself and etc.
I think what the struggle is with eating disorders is you can remove alcohol completely and you can remove multiple addictions completely. You can't remove eating.
You can't remove eating.
So you have to eat eventually.
I've got a good business idea though, which is I think that we should stop eating food in general because it's such a waste of time. Don't you reckon?
I love eating food.
Yeah,
I love eating food, but I do get what you're saying. Like sometimes I want to eat, but then I've got something going on. I'm like, I don't have time, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think sleep as well. That was a good. I gave this pitch to one of my co-workers at work. I'm like, eating's so annoying. Let's just not eat. And then he's like, how about sleep? We sleep for like 8 hours. That's so unproductive.
But I don't think that's a business idea. You can't get rid of sleep.
This is a joke.
All right. I think you could get rid of eating some. I reckon one day they'll have a tablet with nutrients.
Okay, I was kidding.
Really?
Yes. But I mean, sure.
I think they will.
Quite possibly, bro.
One day we'll be able, yeah, you just don't know.
Yeah.
I'd love to be like a whale and just filter feed.
Oh, I won't give you I won't give the insult that I wanted to. Oh god. How did we even get onto eating disorders and addiction?
Deliberate de-optimization, consuming content doesn't make you the thing behavioral change does. Yeah. Okay, I've got one thing to finish on,
Okay.
which is very few people are chosen to struggle so much. People who are chosen to struggle will learn the most. It's a privilege because you don't have to worry about survival and specific privileges that you have from not worrying. So, some people, for example, explore for greed. Some people explore for the mass. Some turn it into greed, and some turn it into some turn it into good for the mass. It is a privilege to be chosen. It's not for the weak. You will never hear about the weak, as their stories will never outweigh the noise of the strong. In today's society, less and less people are chosen to impact the mass, but more are chosen to impact the small. So, to summarize that, this is probably a little bit like my ideology almost, which is where we get the grandiose thing.
Yeah.
And I would say that certain people have the ability to deal with very, very difficult things in life. And in my opinion, the people who are able to withstand and deal with the difficult things in life are chosen. And I say chosen in the terms of like, it's actually just natural selection. Like if you don't have the mental fortitude to go down a said pursuit, you just won't make it. Therefore, your story will never be heard, and also you will never have the impact that you.
But does that mean that you are having? It's like an innate part of you.
I also think, I mean, possibly innate, but I would also say a lot of it can be trained. Like if
I don't think that. I think it's a maybe blissful ignorance that it is part of you, but I think just believing that you are made. I don't think it's like innate in someone that they're made to deal with hard stuff, hard things.
You don't think it's innate?
No.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like there's possibly, let's say that dealing with hard things, you needed a massive ego. It's also possible that just hereditary, your family typically have a bit higher of an ego because they lack X, Y, and Z.
But then doesn't that make it easier to deal with those pursuits anyway?
Whatever it is. Maybe it's you're small. Maybe apparently being small helps you. Like Napoleon, it makes you have X, Y, and Z. Like
yeah,
it's so unquantifiable that both are possible.
Okay.
Both are possible.
But then what's the difference? Why can't someone who was born like... I think it is your response to these... That's why you're like... People remember those that dealt with challenges, like huge challenges, because not because they had challenges that may be completely different to other people, but their response was so great to those challenges.
Yeah.
Is that do you agree with that?
Yeah, completely. Which is why when we speak about like my perception of that and how I act with that, it is very much aligned with choosing the struggle to be very difficult, to lean into the narrative of I can do difficult things and still come out of the other side. And that's why we say it as the grandiose.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's we call it manufactured because it is. It's not like I woke up and actually thought that. It's just through the decisions and characteristics that I taught myself, I came to the conclusion of, oh, now that I've done all this, now that I've got all of the attributes, some proof, it means that my proof is only a matter of time away.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've only got the attributes because of what you've endured.
Exactly. And then, which is a privilege. I've only endured it because it's a privilege. If we look at that kid there, they will never have to go through any of that because their struggles are so much more chosen than mine. And that's exactly why and this is a little bit deep, but this is why I really do believe it's my responsibility to do everything I can within my means to do so, because there's kids like that who would be dying to be in my position. And when it's like, I've been told that I'm privileged and take my privilege for granted before. And that's like, I don't see how that is, because if you have privilege, use it.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful not to use your privilege. Because that person would do everything right now to be in my
Yeah,
shoes.
yeah,
It's disrespectful, in my opinion, not to use your privilege.
yeah. We've spoken about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a huge motivator.
To both of our ideologies.
It is, and like we do manufacture the challenges because obviously we're so fortunate that we may not have to deal with
Yes.
humongous drastic things. But then it also is important because it's inevitable in life that you will go through struggles, whether it was your medical thing overseas,
And vice versa.
yeah, and yeah, when those come, you need to be able to know that you can deal with it.
Yes.
So yeah, I think from that, I would say it's your reaction, it's sort of the knowledge that all the best stories or all the best people that resonate still to this day, when they dealt with their struggles in a proactive way, I think that's the important part of it. It wasn't their struggles inherently.
Yeah. And that can get you to the point of natural selection to where the best of the best will actually, you'll know about them. Because they'll be at the top.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about like specific people in today's world where it's like they don't deserve it. I think that if you think that the person at the top doesn't deserve it, and you think that it's been given to them, which is actually also what was said in the episode, you just don't know their story well enough because they do deserve it. It's literal natural selection. You don't just fall upon it because so many people are trying to get there that it can't be luck. That's literally earned.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of which, it's got no point onto the next point. So I just said, speaking of which is we have to hop into a meeting in 6 minutes time and we need to wrap up. 4 minutes, 5 minutes time.
5 minutes time.
Yep. So, call to actions. I'll do them because you took
Okay.
time. Subscribe, download Sculpted app, follow on TikTok, follow on Instagram, subscribe on LinkedIn newsletter, subscribe to BTS, follow Nick on Instagram.
Where are his fingers pointing?
To the man upstairs.
Yeah.
Actually, my room's directly upstairs. So
Yeah. Grandiose delusions. Okay. On that note.
on that note, Alfia, just press record.
Alfia?
Alfia.
Charlie?
Charlie. Right.
Let's just look into the camera as they end.